I try to be impartial on this channel, but the moment the door closes and the first whistle blows, I'm as one-eyed and impassioned a Wales fan as anyone you'll find anywhere in any valley. And yet, for all my accentless screeching as George North catches the ball, I don't know if any result in this year's World Cup would make me quite as happy as seeing Japan win the thing on their home turf. It's a long shot, but then Japan always are. They're an outside bet, but they're the one that everyone wants to make because for these last 4 years, Japan have been, at the very least, everyone's second favourite team. So, as they head towards an unprecedented home World Cup, how are Japan looking, and just what is it that makes them the fan favourite team that everyone but Scotland wants to see do well? It's a simple formula. Japan are always underdogs. Despite qualifying for every World Cup, until the 2015 tournament, Japan had only ever won one game, a 1991 thrashing of Zimbabwe, and if you want an idea as to why that Japan team didn't do well in their other games, they scored 9 tries that day, but only 2 conversions. Japan then drew with Canada in 2007 and 2011, both games taking late kicks to tie things up. The Japan teams of 1987 to 2011 were very easy to love. They were incredibly entertaining to watch, and they never considered seppuku, fighting hard in every battle until the end, no matter how outmatched they may be. This was reason enough to love Japan, and then in 2015, the fighting paid off as Japan achieved the greatest victory in the history of the Rugby World Cup, even greater than the time Italy beat Russia 53-17 in 2011. Despite being 500-1 outsiders, Japan defeated 2-time champion and rugby's own giant enemy crab, South Africa. This launched a hugely spirited campaign in which Japan captured the public's imagination. I had friends with no interest in rugby tuning in to watch Japan's games, texting me about their every try and asking what the hell a bonus point was. They beat Samoa, they beat the USA, and then they lost to Scotland just 4 days after their famous win, meaning they became the first team to ever go out in the pool stages despite winning 3 games. But it's not just their willingness to fight that endears everyone towards Japan, it's their willingness to play. Japan play, and have pretty much always played, possibly the most beautiful rugby of any team in the world. We're talking 70s Wales, 05 All Blacks, poolside Tommy Bowe levels gorgeous. I mean, look at this try against Wales from 2007. That's 31-year-old lock, beleaguered firefighter and general all-round 98 cap legend of Japanese rugby, Hitoshi Ono, making the initial burst before linking up with support. And then look at it, it's incredible vision, it's great skills, the passing, and then it's Kazuki Endo on the end to run it in, to finish it, in a try that reminds me I'm a rugby fan before I'm a Wales fan. However, whereas that famous 05 All Blacks was about perfecting the unexpected, and that classic Cymru side about genius improvisation, Japanese rugby is traditionally more about dedicated precision. We're talking craft work to Dan Carter's Bowie and Gareth Edwards' Miles Davis. Whereas set moves off scrums and lineouts are almost a bonus part of most team traditions, Japanese rugby is built around them like no other rugby culture. Perhaps the perfect example is this try from 2016 against Scotland. Whereas most teams would set into position to clear the ball, Japan run a set move, taking advantage of Scotland dropping players back to cover a potential kick. Japan loop their primary kicker, Kosei Ono, around the secondary kicker, Tatakawa, drawing the entire defence in on their most likely sources for a clearance. Instead, the ball goes wide and then is recycled quickly, with backs waiting in position. The break is made again, and eventually Kaito Shigeno is on hand to score the try. However, as you can imagine, running moves like this takes time, practice and dedication. Whilst in charge of the team, Eddie Jones praised the players as being easily the most programmable and amongst the hardest working he'd ever coached. Part of the reason Japan under Jones worked so well was because he bought into their culture, he embraced Japan, but introduced contemporary and overseas rugby thinking. And for similar reason, whilst there may have been higher profile candidates, I don't think Japan could have made a better appointment to replace him than former Highlanders boss Jamie Joseph. Undeterred by the fact that plural in his team's name betrayed the fact they can be only one, Joseph took the Healy boys from 14th in a 15-team league to champions for the first time ever in just 2 years. And whilst Japan's results the last 3 years have been somewhat spotty, Joseph has managed some very impressive results against notably bigger nations. They came very close against Wales in 2016, only denied by a late drop goal by Sam Davis, who's a rare case of a man that manages to be lanky without being tall. In 2017, Japan managed to draw against France in Paris in just another game that will come up in court when people try to pinpoint where it all began after Guillem Garada goes on a 16-person killing spree after France inevitably lose to the USA. And last year, they beat Italy and were ahead at half-time against England before the infallible Owen Farrell came on, knowing what his dad would say over Sunday dinner if his son had lost to Japan. They also took part in one of the most entertaining games of last year, as they put 31 points past New Zealand and showed just how exciting the likes of Kenki Fukuoka can be when they get hold of the ball. However, the length of his tenure, Joseph has known it was all leading up to the most important event in Japanese rugby history, a home World Cup. And so, knowing the time, practice, dedication Japan require to be at the top of their natural game, Joseph took a huge risk. There was an odd minor story last year, as Jamie Joseph appointed himself the head coach of the Sunwolves A team. Not the Super Rugby side, the Sunwolves, their reserves. It was something I looked at, kind of went, oh, that's weird, and then just moved on. However, it's turned out to be an ingenious decision that is absolutely crucial to the way Japan have prepared for this World Cup. Last December, Joseph drew up an initial preliminary World Cup squad, and then he went and signed as many of those players as possible to the Sunwolves reserve team. The players still contracted with Japanese top league teams were withdrawn to join the Sunwolves A team on a training-only basis. This meant, with only 2 exceptions, Joseph will have had his international team together training every day as a unit for almost a full year by the time the World Cup kicks off. Now, Super Rugby doesn't have a formal A-League akin to the Premiership, just a handful of independently organised fixtures by those teams themselves. This meant Joseph had complete control over how many games his players played. They only had a fixture when Joseph felt they needed a hit out, and if he got the feeling that one player needed more game time, he could promote them to the Sunwolves first 15 for a few weeks and pit them against international quality opposition. This gives Japan the same familiarity advantage that Argentina have, who spend all season playing together as Jaguares, but without the battered bodies and jet lag involved in playing 19 games of top flight rugby across 3 continents in just a few months. Joseph has been able to train and condition his Japan team with the time that every test coach wants, but none of them ever receive. Whilst this lack of game time is a huge risk, it certainly didn't show in this year's Pacific Nations Cup. Japan not only won the title, but they won every game by multiple scores. Their comprehensive deconstruction of a Fiji team with basically the same personnel that took apart France in their previous game was a huge warning shot to everyone at the World Cup. Japan are not content to just be good hosts. They will be that as well, but they're also here to play. Joseph's Japan played last month exactly what you'd want from a dream Japan team. They play with an incredible cohesion, a product of their months out. Each player seems to know each other player's every instinct, and this means every break or cheeky attack and kick is anticipated, and the other players are able to easily follow up. Japan's game is as efficient as it is because they play simply faster than anyone else. But whereas Fiji's pace is a product of their genetic freakery and insane talent, Japan's is built on work and precision. This is thanks largely to their trio of excellent scrum halves. Fumi Tanaka is already a cult hero across the rugby world, but I'm a huge fan of their other 2 choices. The aforementioned Kaito Shigeno and Yutaka Nagare. The pair are extremely similar players. I've scarcely seen a scrum half able to whip the ball away as quickly as the pair of them can, and this pace allows Japan to find holes in and space around any defence, something made all the easier through the presence of who I would argue is their single most important player at this year's World Cup, even above Michael Leach, fly half Yu Tamura. With just weeks until the World Cup, I think Tamura might be one of the top 5 form players in the world. Tamura doesn't fit into the madcap mould of most attacking fly halves, whereas a Barrett, an Anscombe or a Russell is a maverick restraining themselves to work with others. Tamura is all about calmly unlocking the defence in front of him with the fewest moves possible. Watching Tamura play rugby is a bit like watching a chess grandmaster ace everyone at Mario Kart. He has a calm collectedness about him, despite playing a style of rugby that is inherently chaotic. We've only seen him this year against lower tier defences, granted, so it's possible playing Ireland may come as something of a culture shock, but the pace Japan play at almost negates a rush defence, as they operate at an even more frantic rate than the line speed tries to harry them into doing. If Tamura can keep his head in place and his legs in good health, he could be the key man in helping propel Japan towards another upset. Because if Japan are to keep England in their place as the worst performing host nation of all time and get out the group, they're going to need to beat either Ireland or Scotland, or even both. Ireland will be the bigger challenge. Not just because they're nominally the better team, but because their keep ball style of rugby is the most effective way to counter this Japanese outfit. Scotland, however, is kind of far more doable. Japan very easily were able to contain Fiji's similarly attack-minded passing rugby and just denied them enough ball to cause damage. Japan's breakdown is incredibly efficient and line-out are more reliable, but their scrum is looking like something of an issue, so this may be Scotland's biggest edge over their hosts. Before that, however, Japan start out against Russia in what should be a super entertaining game against another side who put all their focus on attack. They'll have bigger tests to come afterwards, but if Japan are going to pull off the biggest upset in Rugby World Cup history for a second time. They're going to have all of us secretly right behind them, hoping, maybe, just maybe, rugby might just favour a 500-1 long shot again. Hello. So about a year ago, I set out trying to make a video on every single team in this year's World Cup, all 20. At the time, I genuinely didn't think I'd be able to manage it. I thought I'd have to perhaps roll some of the Pacific Islands in together because I've got some of the backstories, or skip the All Blacks or England or someone because everyone knows about them already. In the end, I've managed it. So this is the 20th. This is the final video in the series, so all of them are now on the channel. You can now go and have a look at every team in the World Cup and get a bit of a profile, a bit of background on them, of their chances in this year's Rugby World Cup, which kicks off in less than 2 weeks now. It's very, really quite close. And to note that, you may notice where I am. I'm not in my kitchen as usual. I am currently in Japan, and something I've noticed that adds to that video, that adds to just Japan's chances in this World Cup, is that Japanese people don't sweat because it's very warm and probably quite noisy, as you can hear from the crows and the guy playing a flute over there. It's really quite warm. All the reports about it being hot in the World Cup, very true. There was a typhoon earlier, didn't really make a difference. I've just been walking around perpetually thinking, leaving the hotel looking all right, and then realising inside 10 minutes I was just looking absolutely drenched by my own forehead. So yeah, it's warm for anyone heading out here. It's warm. Incidentally, people already are out here. Thanks to Evan and Dan who came last night. I put up a tweet just saying, or a couple of nights ago now as you're watching this, saying I'm going to be watching the Wales Island game in the Hobgoblin pub in Shibuya in Tokyo. Why don't you pop along? Say hi if you want to. 2 people did. I'm thinking of doing something like that again, like on the night before the World Cup kicks off on the 19th. If you're going to be in and around Tokyo on that night and you're interested in coming, please let me know. Just comment in the comments or on Twitter, just so I got some idea of how many people are coming, so I know where to try and set things up for. Otherwise, I'm going to be putting a video in the next couple of days on just my plans for the World Cup, on what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be looking to get done, and so on, plus in the week leading up to the World Cup where I'm going to try to put out as much as possible. So look forward to that, and I'll continue looking around me. For all you care, this could be Chesterfield. For all you know, it is honestly Japan. I'm in a park just outside Shibuya, and I'll see you somewhere else in Japan very soon. Thank you for watching. Arigato. Sayonara.